Okay, I'm going to rant today because there's a comment that I've been getting on this channel as well as my TikTok and Instagram for years. I've been posting content consistently for 4 years. This comment I get probably every other video. And it bothers me because it's nonsense. It doesn't make any sense, right? They're coming from a good place, right? Like it is a virtuous argument to have, but the road to hell is paved with good intentions. And whenever I make the points that I'm about to make in this video, nobody ever has a good rebuttal to those points. They just kind of spit out the conclusion that they already gave me without showing their work, without actually showing me how they arrived at that conclusion. This is the comment. Housing is not an investment. It's a human right, right? Or something to the likes of that, some type of conglomerate of this type of verbiage, right? Housing is an investment. It just so happens to be an investment, right? All of the real estate everybody lives in, every single one of you, whether you rent or you own, was built by somebody. And the person who built it had to invest their money to build that real estate. So right off the bat, argument's wrong. Housing is an investment. Now, if they worded it like this, if they said family homes are not an investment, okay, fair. Let's talk about that, right? The problem, again, coming from a good place, but to me doesn't make sense. The problem with that statement is because basically where they want to take it, where they want to go with this is that nobody should be allowed to invest in real estate. It should be banned. Real estate investing should be banned. That's what they want ultimately because they think that's going to solve all the problems, right? If you ban real estate investing, what about the tenant who wants to rent a detached house? Because where are you going to build a bunch of rental detached homes anywhere in Greater Vancouver? I'll answer that for you. Absolutely nowhere. And even if you could, I guarantee the numbers wouldn't make very much sense because you would be building a $3.2 million house and renting it for $5,000 a month, right? So right off the bat, you eliminate the investor. Now nobody can rent a detached home, right? So if you think that all tenants should only be able to rent condos and townhomes, then fair, excellent. But I would argue that that statement you're making isn't very virtuous anymore because, for example, my older sister, all right, probably 8 years ago, she had a kid and 2 stepkids and a husband, and they all lived in the same detached home and they rented it and they needed that space because there was 5 people living in that house, right? My good buddy Scott, who actually trained me when I was an apprentice plumber, and I rode with him for probably 6 months. At the time, he was renting a detached home in Cloverdale, right? He had 2 kids, a wife, and he liked to go camping. He had a truck, he had a big truck and a work van, and he went camping almost every single weekend in the summer. So he had a camper on the back of his truck. Renting a condo or a townhome isn't gonna make sense for him. He doesn't have the space to park his vehicles. I don't know what he's gonna do with the camper. And then he has 2 kids. What about the guy who has 3 or 4 kids and, their parents come over all the time and they entertain family and blah, blah, blah. They can't rent condos and townhomes. So you get rid of the investor who buys a detached home and rents it out. Well, now tenants can't, renting a detached home is no longer an option. It doesn't work because nobody is buying plots of land, building 50 detached homes for rental. The numbers don't make sense and you'd need a lot of land. And we just don't even really have that much land. Sure, you can probably do it in Mission and Abbotsford and places deep in the valley, but you can't do it in Vancouver. You probably can't do it in Burnaby or any of those areas, right? So if that's the case and that's what you want, well, then tenants are confined to just renting a condo or a town, probably not even a townhome, right? I doubt there's very many rental townhomes in Greater Vancouver as well, right? You're pretty much just saying tenants should only be able to rent condos. It's basically what you're saying, right? And, I'm of the belief that the tenant should have the option, if they so please, to have a backyard and a driveway and be able to park a boat. What, you think tenants don't have boats? Some of them do. Some people rent out of option, not out of necessity. Some people choose to rent because they don't want to put down a $300,000 down payment. They want that money, right? So they rent, by choice, they rent, not out of necessity, right? So I think they should have a backyard, a driveway, space for their work van, space for their boat or their trailer, so they can live the lifestyle that they want to live without having to purchase a home. So to to conclude all of this, right? Housing is an investment. The system that we have is a good system. There's nothing, what's wrong with the system isn't the system. What's wrong with the system is the mismanagement of the system, right? Like if the government didn't spend so much money and print so much money and, just flood our system with liquidity, then all of that money wouldn't have, fleed into assets, pushed up the price of all of these assets. If the returns in real estate were a modest 2 to 3 to 4% per year, you would have a lot less people investing in real estate. Again, it just comes back to don't hate the player, hate the game, right? And the game is the system, but the system isn't wrong. How the system's being managed is the problem. And that's what caused a lot of overinvestment in the last 15 years, way more people investing than what was previously seen. Because what are you going to do with your capital, right? Well, I can invest in a business and take all of this risk and then maybe make, a couple $100,000 a year, or I can just buy a house that's going to be worth $300,000 in the next couple of years and do nothing, knowing that interest rates are this, rent is going up, and, we're not really building anything, right? So based on that math, this should be worth more money in the next 5 years. So that's my opinion on that. And every time I say this, people oh, well, if there was no investors, then the prices would be lower and everybody would be able to buy. Not everybody's going to buy. Regardless of what the prices are, not everybody's going to buy. Some people just like renting and actually play that scenario out for me, right? So they ban investors right now, today. What happens to all the people with rental properties? Are they grandfathered in? Do they have to instantaneously sell those properties and flood the market? Okay, the prices go down. How many of these tenants have a down payment to buy a home? Even if the price of a detached home went from $1 million to $400,000, how many tenants have $80,000 sitting around where they can just buy a detached home? I'm willing to bet probably not too many. So there's always going to be a certain pool of people that are going to rent no matter what the price of a home is. So that's my rant today. I hope you enjoyed it. If you want to chat with me about investing in real estate, there's a link down in the description. You can book a time to chat with me in the calendar, or maybe you just want to buy a home to live in. Either way, I'm cool. Otherwise, I appreciate you for being here. I'm that Agent Kelly. I'm making moves to move you. Peace.